Al Capone was more than just a gangster. He was an entrepreneur in one of the most profitable industries in American history. Of free market competition, but of government policy. The prohibition was much more than just a ban on alcohol. It opened up a market, removed legal competition, and handed the supply chain up to whoever was brave enough to take it. Made millionaires out of run-of-the-mill criminals, corrupted entire villages, and established a permanent economic principle. He'd demand another provider will step in. The United States government celebrated the 18th Amendment as a moral crusade when it became law in 1920, prohibiting the making, selling, and transporting of alcohol. Alcohol was found as the underlying cause of crime, poverty, and domestic violence. It was a political promise, and society not an economic appraisal. The craving for booze did not vanish suddenly. It did grow in various places. When there is demand and no legal supply, prices go up. Al Capone had built his business on the divide between law and reality. Capone was born in Brooklyn in 1899 to impoverished Italian immigrants, and was actively involved in organized crime by his early 20s. Was not only a place of opportunity, it was the linchpin of an economic revolution in the underground. Vice. It was the new oil. Capone was perfectly placed to take his organization, his extensive relationships, and his ruthlessness. His venture was no wild lot of bottle hawkers operating from hidden locales. It was a vertically integrated corporation. That would have made a corporate strategist smile. Capone operated breweries, distilleries, import lines, and distribution operations. His product was available in a number of speakeasy, secret bars that operated under the cover of soda stores, nightclubs, or private residences, each enjoying the steady supply. His group pulled in an estimated $100 million a year in 1920s money. That would be around $1.5 billion in today's dollars. Capone was not only a moneymaker, he was moving money around. Bootleg money was nasty. He bought into cash-intensive enterprises such as restaurants, knew the value nightclubs of legitimacy, which hid the source and gave the public face for his criminal empire. The police were kept at bay with bribes. The politicians averted their eyes. In a city where prohibition had driven most of the business underground, not regarded an outlaw, it was a voice, a philanthropist. It was not the teaching of violence in some was the cornerstone of his success. Though it was sometimes used, he knew prohibition was his opportunity and his Achilles heel. His revenue was the result of the illegality the day it was authorized again. So, he diversified. Gambling, prostitution, and a few other unlawful industries were added to the portfolio. Alcohol remained the bedrock because of the economics. It had that nothing else could touch. Before prohibition, alcohol was a low-margin commodity. Beer was cheap. Wine was on tap, then after whiskey was inexpensive. Each step of the supply chain had an additional corruption. For example, police bribes, driver intermediary alcohol became more expensive. Yet people kept buying it. Demand was inelastic. Was woven into the fabric of social life, culture, and tradition. Those who were ready to meet that demand possessed a commodity, marked by government-created scarcity. Capone saw what the lawmakers could not see. Prohibition did not end Capone's operation. Ran like an industrial, but outside the law. His company approach bore all the hallmarks of a contemporary supply chain resilience, brand equity, unmatched distribution. The economics were amazing since the market was artificially tight. A bottle of whiskey or a barrel of beer was a luxury, not because of its quality, but because of the danger involved. But prohibition had a different impact, a sick economic environment. Capone was not simply going after criminals with his financial activities. It was sent to police officers, magistrates, was not local officials, and federal agents. The OS was the problem. Enforcement is no longer really about law. It's a question of money. Funded by the late 1920s, Capone's power was so total that Chicago politics and organized crime on their ties to the organization. Rival gangs began to fight for control. The infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929, which led to territorial disputes, was the visible face of the empire. But it was not the point. Capone's control of the financial resources made him untouchable for a long time. But policy-based power by the early 1930s, public feeling was changing. The Great Depression changed the political landscape. The moral concerns about prohibition were outweighed by the tax revenue to be gained from the legalization. Capone was a national symbol of crime, and hence an excellent target. For federal agents, too well secured, his enterprises too well protected. But they could try. The government convicted Capone in 1931 of income tax evasion and sentenced him to 11 years in federal jail, not the outcome of a rival gang. Documentation was made of it. The market that had made Capone a billionaire evaporated overnight. Licensed brewers, distilleries are back in business. Repriced. The alcohol trade became a regulated industry, no longer an unlawful monopoly. One of the largest illegal economies in American history became taxable revenue. Prohibition didn't fall because of the overwhelming force of crime. It failed because of the overwhelming economic demand had its own law. The supply was changed, and the profits were too great. Fast forward to now. The mechanics are the same. Consider the legalization of cannabis. Marijuana was a multi-billion-dollar illegal economy. Enforcement, it only sent money to people who wanted to take the risk. With legalizations spreading, governments are collecting taxes, and the market is consolidating. The economics are the same as they were under prohibition. Or take crypto. For years, it lived in a regulatory traditional finance world. It attracted early adopters, risk takers. The agency of enforcement was slow. The profits have been really significant. The sector is consolidating as regulation investors come into the market, and that is squeezing the previously wide margins. The similar pattern is seen in areas affected by sanctions, energy policy, and environmental control. But markets aren't killed by governments restricting or regulating supply, they shunt Italiano. The challenge is to know the difference between law and demand. Whether it is oil under sanctions, rare earth metals under export limits, or carbon credits under environmental rules. The story of Capone is plain. This isn't about crime. It is about the nexus success law was based on recognizing a structural inefficiency. Inside a market arbitrarily, you don't have to be running a criminal operation exploiting these inefficiencies. If they're legal or not, the people who obtain them rapidly get the advantage. What's the money lesson of the day? Markets are never entirely free. They are shaped by policy, legislation, and financial literacy is all about understanding such capital moves. Secondly, natural or artificial scarcity influences pricing, demand, and profit margins. Savvy players have an edge if they know about artificial scarcity, established by rules, licenses, and restrictions. Policy markets are, by definition, as suddenly as the bans were over. Today's profit centers from limits may be eliminated. If your fortune is based exclusively on a legal loophole, it is temporary. Diversification Capone's is empire grew survival because Capone knew his environment better than almost anybody else. It died from environmental changes he could not respond to quickly enough. That is still true for all investors, entrepreneurs, and policymakers today. Went to prison. But the cycle of policy, it still thrives. Scarcity, cannabis, profit, Bitcoin, continued commodities, and any other areas where demand exceeds legal supply. Itself. But a failure to understand history might still be your doom. If this gave you a fresh perspective, consider subscribing. History offers the answers. I'll tell you where to find it.